Willis 213, what's happening, man? It was quite the video yesterday. Was that at a soccer game? Hey, John Denicola, Posiwi. Welcome in, everybody. Oh, okay. Damn. Yeah, I don't know about that, man. It's just, man, you're at a youth football league, you know what I mean? Come on, guys. Like, you don't even don't know how to act. Some people take things too seriously. I don't know how it all started, but it's something else, man. Something else. Guys, don't forget to hit that like button. Thank you. Yeah, John. Yeah, I agree with you there. Oh shit. Yeah. I get a little overzealous there. Shit. It's just a fucking kids football game, man. It's not NFL. Shit. Expect that to happen at an NFL game, not some youth football camp. Football league. Okay, folks. We got 4 in chat, and we only got 1 thumbs up. Something wrong here. Hey, what's up, Kate, man? Yeah, realist. Yep. I was hoping to get over to the library, just to be in there where it's quiet, but of course there's somebody that was in there. And I didn't want to be in there talking out loud while somebody's trying to read a book. Kind of distracting. All right, come on now. I don't have to keep reminding. This is the 3rd time. Thumbs up, people, so we can get started. Got 5 in, got 3 thumbs up. All right, and that's good enough. I'll go ahead and get started, guys. Okay, it's chapter 5 about the Apache Leap. A good legend or myth should contain at least portions of several key elements. They include traces of basic fact, generous amounts of believable fiction, a touch of mystery, healthy doses of skepticism, and overt hints of intrigue, all interspersed with well-weathered folklore, supposition, and some speculation, both biased and non-judgmental. Equally important, there should be no written records to support or disprove the legend. But most of all, it must be subject that it is debatable for years, decades, even centuries after the alleged actual fact. The legend of Apache Leap qualifies on all counts. The incident upon which it is based may have actually happened, or maybe it's simply another old folk tale. If it happened, it was before 1865 or after 1871. The U.S. Army may have been involved, or it could have been a non-military operation. As many as 80 Apache warriors were killed, or perhaps it was only 25. Only this much is absolute fact. Apache Leap is a real place. It is a reddish, craggy bluff that rises more than 2,000 feet above an area still known as Queen Creek Valley, but now more commonly referred to as the town of Superior, Arizona. The bluff is composed of sedimentary stone layers from the Paleozoic era, and time and the elements have carved the layers into contorted shapes that resemble spires and monoliths with sharp edges. Or if viewers squint their eyes, the cliffs look like giant forests in which all the trees are made of rock. Either way, it is both fascinating and foreboding. It rises 4,833 feet above sea level at the north end of the Dripping Springs Mountains, about 6 miles east of Picket Post Mountain. Near the bottom of Apache Leap, rockhounds still find pieces of obsidian encased in pearlite. All these factors play important roles in the many versions of the story. And now on to the legend. Interspersed with some history, it's not a pretty story because it goes back to a time when white men considered Indians less than human. Apache tribes had roamed freely across the area since about AD 1500. They were diverse groups involved in hunting, gathering, and farming. The Pinal Apaches, fierce and warlike, held dominion over much of the Pinal Mountains all the way up to the Mogollon Rim farther north. The Coyoteros developed pastures and small farms called rancherias. The Tonto Apaches claimed the hunting and planting grounds in the shelter of the Tonto Basin. Though they never banded together as one tribe, all three were united in their enmity for the settlers who began arriving in the mid-1800s. They repulsed the intruders as long as they could, but eventually the tide overwhelmed the natives and development sprang up along the rivers that fed the fertile land. Foremost among them was Florence Settlement, a farming community that had been named after a sister of Richard McCormick, the second governor of Arizona Territory. This was a matter of great concern to the Apaches because Florence butted up against the edge of their lands. As a result, they retaliated. Because it was so isolated, Florence became a target of continuous raids by the Apaches, who stole or drove away livestock and killed many other settlers who rode the lonely trails between farms. In an effort to counteract the attacks, the federal government created the Arizona Military District and appointed General George Stoneham as its commander. Once he arrived at its new post, General Stoneham realized that the only way to deal with the Apache threat was to establish military posts in the very heart of their territory, a sprawling area that many called Apacheria or Apache land. The first post was originally named Camp Infantry, then later called Camp Pinal. But in the spring of 1871, General Stoneham moved the outpost to the base of Tornillo Peak and renamed the peak Picket Post Mountain. The Army soon discovered that the top of Picket Post was an ideal site for watching the movements of the enemy. Hey, what's up, good citizen? In this case of the Apaches in hiding on the top of Big Picacho, a red bluff 6 miles away in the formation known today as Apache Lead. From their positions on top of Picket Post Mountain, the soldiers used sunlight and mirrors to send signals by heliograph to look out on other mountains, thus protecting miners, freighters, and sellers from the raiders, whom they referred to as the hostiles. The Apaches, on the other hand, took a different view. They were defenders trying to protect their homelands from the white aggressors, so the raids continued. General Stoneham was relieved of his command before he could implement his plans for a major offensive against the Indians. Disgusted, he resigned from the army. The agricultural developments grew larger. The raids became more frequent. Time after time, the exasperated troops chased the marauders back into their mountain strongholds, and time after time, the clever Apaches vanished into the crevices and canyons. Very crafty. Although they could never figure out how the Apaches got up there, the soldiers suspected there was a large rancheria on top of Big Picacho. They had seen the campfires and smoke signals and occasionally had spotted a lone Indian lookout perched on the jagged cliffs. But the knowledge was of little use to the army. All their military attempts to launch a campaign against the settlement were futile, primarily because they couldn't figure out how to scale the treacherous bluffs. Eventually, however, the situation was resolved. At this point, fiction or fact, folklore and legend, and speculation and supposition all converge and dissipate into a variety of stories. This is one. The Tonto Apaches called all their warriors together on top of the bluff, and in an apparent show of force lit campfires along the summit as a prelude to an attack. A move probably designed to intimidate the troops. It didn't work. The army had discovered the secret pathway to the top, so the soldiers were able to sneak up during the night. They surrounded the encampment, and when dawn broke, they jumped the camp, shooting indiscriminately. Some of the Apaches fought back, but most of them leaped over the brink to their deaths on the sharp rocks below. Shit. No, they weren't going to be taken. They said, fuck this, they didn't fucking jump. Here's another version, this one written by C.S. Scott in a 1914 magazine article. The Apaches and soldiers could plainly see each other from mountaintop to mountaintop. Beyond the possible range of any arms that either had, the Indians felt secure and the whites were merely carrying out a strategic plan. By means of the heliograph, the soldiers of Picket Post signaled to scouts of the mountain party who were instructed to always keep the Picket Post party in view, apprising them of the whereabouts of the Indians. The mountain party then stealthily crept up on the farther side of the big mountain in the rear of the Apaches and assaulting them by surprise. Wrought fearful havoc with their initial volley and followed up their bloody work as fast as possible. Scott interjected here that there were women and children among the Apaches. The Indians were, damn, fixing brakes, bro. He's got fucking dirt in them brake pads. Anywho, the Indians were panic-stricken and retreated in the only direction possible, toward the hither side of the mountain, which is a perpendicular cliff. It is said that many who did not fall before the rain of bullets threw themselves off the cliff in the hope of escaping fatal injury. Those of recent times who have been sufficiently curious and energetic to scale its forbidding cliff report the find of beads, bones, arrowheads, grim proofs of the essential facts of an incident of history that is fast entering the twilight zone between authentic detail and legendary recital. Historians count such accounts Historians counter such accounts as improbable for a couple of reasons. First, there are no Apache versions of the story, either in oral or written histories. Second, there is no mention of such an incident anywhere in the military records of the period. This leads to the speculation that something similar may have actually occurred, but it involved only a few people. However, as the story grew in the years past, more victims were added. Whereas others believe the episode might have happened in the 1860s during a time when volunteers and vigilantes were dealing with the Indian problem. If anybody doesn't mind, if you guys want to share it out, if you can get a few more people in, that'd be greatly appreciated. I thank you. The Arizona Volunteers, in fact, are credited with being the cause of the legend in another version. This one based on a document on file at the Arizona Mining and Mineral Museum in Phoenix. Hey, Crofty, how you doing? Good to see you. Linking the fable to a specific military action in the winter of 1871. The paper says that Captain John Walker led the Pima Indian troops of Company B, 1st Arizona Volunteers, on the raid atop Big Picacho. Nearly 50 of the band of 75 Apaches were killed in the first volley of shots, according to that rendition. The remainder of the tribe retreated to the cliff's edge and chose death by leaping over the edge rather than die at the hands of the attackers. There's a flaw in that story, however. The 1st Arizona Volunteers was a militia unit composed of Mexicans and Native Americans, formed to track down Apaches in 1865 when most regular soldiers were away fighting in the Civil War. The unpaid volunteers allegedly killed more than 100 people before disbanding in 1866, 5 years before they allegedly staged a surprise attack on the top of the mountain. But that version is upheld by a similar version. This one written by James M. Barney and published in October 1940 edition of Arizona Highways. Reprints of Barney's story are now handed out by the Superior Chamber of Commerce as the official story of how Apache Leap got its name. The text relates that the Apaches raided a ranch near Florence and drove away some cattle. The ranchers and farmers enlisted the aid of friendly Pima Indians, organized a vigilante posse, and patiently followed the trail of the raiders for several days. The Pimas were led by Captain John Walker, a member of an Illinois tribe and Civil War veteran. He left the army and settled among the Pimas, learned their language, and became one of their chiefs and medicine men. When the Arizona Volunteers were formed, Walker raised Company B, composed entirely of Pimas, and was named after their captain. Now called into duty, the company found the secret pathway leading to the Apache encampment. According to this account, the Apaches had made a fatal mistake. Apparently feeling perfectly safe in their secret hiding place, they neglected to post lookouts. The oversight enabled the Pimas and settlers to sneak into the area under cover of night and surround the inhabitants on 3 sides. At daybreak, they attacked. Menaced on 3 sides by continuous gunfire, the story said the Apaches at first fired a few shots at their assailants, then, noting the helplessness of their situation, threw down their weapons and, with raised hands in token of surrender, advanced toward the attacking party. The latter, sensing their advantage, remembering the cruelties to these same Apaches had inflicted upon murdered comrades, refused to accept their surrender and continued to pour a murderous fire into them. And we've got a train. exactly why I have to go to the library now. I don't mind the trains, but it's kind of distracting. Anywho, hey, it was good to see you too, Crofty. About two-thirds of the Apache inhabitants of the Rancheria were killed by the hail of bullets. The rest retreated into the only direction left open to them, to the west, where the edge of the mountain broke off into sheer cliffs and hundreds of feet high. Without a moment's hesitation, the narration continues. The fleeing Apaches threw themselves over the towering cliffs in the faint hope of escaping fatal injury. But the leap into space was too great, and all those who sought that avenue of escape were crushed and broken on the rock below. When the carnage was over, the story relates the entire Apache band of 75 had been killed. There were no casualties among the attackers, and the decisive defeat broke the power of the Apaches in the region. The author concluded his narration with the observation that from that day, Big Picacho has been known as Apache Leap, a most appropriate name perpetuating as it does a tragic incident in the early history of Arizona. For years after the bloody engagement, Apache skeletons could be seen wedged in the crevices of the cliffs over which they had leaped. Those who had been sufficiently curious and energetic enough to scale the rough and broken slopes of the big mountain reported finding bleached bones and beads and arrowheads and other reminders of the conflict that took place. Two other historians have given similar accounts. In 1884, History of Arizona Territory showing its resources and advantages with illustrations. Wallace W. Elliott discussed Apache warriors raids in the area near Florence. He noted that many settlers were killed and their homes burned until the Florentines armed themselves and followed the Apaches after one particular raid. Several days later, they found the trail leading to the hideout and retaliated. In 1918, author and historian Thomas Edwin Ferris repeated the version when he published The History of Arizona, Volume 1. Both writers said 50 Apaches died in the onslaught and not a single warrior escaped. But at this point, both diverged from other accounts by writing that the group from Florence didn't harm any women and children, but instead captured them and turned them over to General Stoneham and his U.S. cavalry station at Camp Pinal. Hey, what's up, Luke? Welcome in, welcome. Many other stories have also dealt with the subject through the years. Most agree that the incident did occur, but they also include noticeable differences. One written history of Superior, there's a line that reads, "The escarpment called the Apache Lead Mountain acquired its legendary name after a roving band of 75 Apache warriors rode their horses off the mountain to their deaths 1,000 feet below and avoided capture by the U.S. Army in a small skirmish atop the mountain." Arizona historians, however, say there is no historical basis for this story. A 1998 Motorcycle Travel magazine article reported there's obsidian, a highly valued stone, can be found in abundance at Apache Leap. There's a mountain. Legend has it, and it may very well be legend only and not fact, that the sheer red cliffs which loom over Superior, Arizona are called Apache Leap because, well, that is exactly what happened there way back when. As the story goes, in the 1870s, when the United States cavalry was busily shoving the natives aside for the benefit of incoming settlers, a group of soldiers from nearby Camp Pinal managed to pin down a band of 75 Apache warriors who were camped up on the red bluff. Preferring death to surrender, the Indians turned to the west and rode their horses over the edge of the 500-foot cliff. Damn, I wonder how they would get their horses out up there like that. I don't know. Maybe they had their own secret little pathway to get them up there. I figure that would be kind of hard for the horses to be stepping on rocks like that. Another history of the town relates. There is, however, still another, if not physical, reminder of the early presence of the U.S. troops in the region, and the origin of the Apache Leap legend can be traced to these troops. Although no official record exists of a skirmish between troops and Indians at what is now called Apache Leap, it is very likely that the legend has basis in fact. As the story was told and retold over the decades, another chapter was added and its speculation became irrelevant. Obsidian became an important element and actual fact was replaced with poignant fantasy. As the second part separates itself from all historical accounts, it has become the stuff of pure legend, unobstructed by certification of any kind. But again, there is one small piece of truth involved. Obsidian is real. It is a glass-like byproduct of volcanic eruptions, originally named obsidianus in Pliny's Natural History because of its resemblance to a stone found in Ethiopia by Opsius. It's hard, usually dark colored or black, and is frequently used as a gemstone. The stones are translucent, often coated with a white, flaky material known as perlite, which has a variety of commercial uses, including one as a soil amendment. After a volcano has erupted and debris, the debris is ejected, has cooled, its obsidian flows can become fractured and hydrated over the millennia, so the original glass is reduced from large sheets to small nuggets, varying from pea to ball size and displaying a good clarity when held up to a bright light. It was valued in Stone Age cultures because, like flint, it could be easily chipped and formed into sharp objects such as arrowheads and blades. Native Americans traded obsidian throughout North America, and it still has several practical uses. It is sometimes utilized in cardiac surgery because blades of well-crafted obsidian are sharper than high-quality steel scalpels. Lapidarians and rockhounds like obsidian because, depending on how it's cut, it presents different colorations that range from jet black to glistening gray. But it is also a key element in the legend of Apache Leap. According to folklore, upon hearing of the massacre the next morning, the wives and mothers of the slain warriors gathered a short distance from the base of the cliff. When they found the broken bodies of their husbands and sons, their grief was immense, filled with sorrow. They began mourning on the spot, and the tears they shed fell to the white sand on the ground and were turned to stone. And now the stones are known as Apache tears. It's a romantic and heart-rending tale, but unlike the story behind the legend of Apache Leap, it has no factual support whatsoever. However, that has had very little effect on the continued telling and retelling of the story. Even today, there is a belief that although obsidian is common to many places across the world, and though only those found at the base of Apache Leap can legitimately call Apache tears. And those who possess Apache tears will never have to cry again because the Apache women wept enough for all mankind. Wow. Black obsidian is still considered a powerful meditation stone that supposedly dissolves suppressed negative patterns and then purifies them. And Apache tears can, according to some, balance the emotional nature and protect the stone's owners from being cheated in business dealings, even while producing clear vision and increasing psychic powers. But just like the legend itself, most of these claims have no basis in either science or fact. Well, that's the end of that one. How'd you guys like that one? Well, there's several tales about it. It makes you want to believe, but I'll just read it. I mean, you never know if it's real or not. Yeah, at the end there, they got a little sad there, just for the women to see their husbands and their kids. You can only imagine the pain, man. But if you you guys would like me to continue, I can do chapter 6. Hey, hey, what's up, Cheryl? Good to see you. I'm glad to have you here. It's been a while. So if you guys would like me to continue, I can do chapter 6. Yeah, I'm gonna tell. Hey, Cindy D. All right, hey, you got it. All right, I just gotta move this over so my phone doesn't catch the sun. As soon as it does, my phone, the screen goes black. It's a pain in the neck. So I'm gonna have to move it over here a little bit. Hey, happy holidays to you. I hope you're doing all right, and I hope your family's doing okay. All right. All right. This one's about Pearl Hart, and she was the last stagecoach robber. In the early morning hours of May 29th, 1899, in the mining town of Globe in the Arizona Territory, Pearl Hart arose from her bed after a fitful night's sleep and got dressed. She did not follow her usual procedure. She was going to hold up a stagecoach, and that would require a drastic departure from her normal routine. So on this day, she tucked her hair into a cowboy hat, slipped her dainty legs into a pair of men's trousers, and did her best to look like someone other than Pearl Hart. A legend was about to be born. In hindsight, it becomes apparent that few, if any, of the misfortunes that befell Pearl Hart would have occurred if she had been more selective about her choice of male companions. Before she was 30 years old, she consorted with a professional gambler, jail escapee, stagecoach robber, sheriffs, deputies, scandal-seeking newspaper reporters, prison wardens and guards, jailhouse denizens, and several men who willingly parted with their wages to briefly enjoy her companionship. Damn. Fucking getting a taste of the buffet there. Shit. Shit. Professional gamblers, jail escapees, stagecoach robbers, sheriffs, deputies, scandal-seeking newspaper reporters, prison wardens and guards, jailhouse denizens, and several men who willingly parted with their wages to. Wow. Yeah. Damn. I'm getting around. All right, here we got another train coming. So. Hey, what's up, 351? Cleveland Modified Motor. Welcome in, man. Welcome, welcome. Makes you wonder when and if she ever got out of bed. That makes me wonder too. Damn. Always on her fucking back. Shit. Bunch of damn guys and of every kind. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and continue. Also, in hindsight, all the bad things that happened to her happened because she loved her mother. She spent most of her formative years trying to better herself to become someone other than the daughter of a Canadian civil engineer. Eventually, she did get to be famous, but in an infamous way. Now she is remembered primarily as the only lady stagecoach robber to ever appear on stage portraying herself. She was born Pearl Taylor in 1871 in Lindsay, Ontario. Her parents were middle class but wealthy enough to send her to finishing school, where she was described as an excellent student, although sometimes disrespectful of her elders. Bored of school and seeking a more exciting life, she made the first of many bad decisions when she eloped at age 16. Jeez. God, no morals back then, nothing. They just fucking do whatever the fuck they want. Shit. Damn, at that damn age, that's too damn young, man. Her husband's last name was Hart. Historians disagree on her first name, but have narrowed it down to Frederick, Brett, or William. With Frederick gaining the majority of the votes, he was a professional gambler and not very good at his trade. The couple spent their first years together doing odd jobs in restaurants, hotels, and saloons. Hart's success at the gaming tables were small and infrequent. He also had a bad temper that worsened when he drank. As his failures at gambling increased, so did his drinking. Inevitably, that combination led to verbal abuse, which led to beatings. Damn. I knew somewhere I was gonna fucking go there. Right, some people can't handle their liquor. I end up doing some stuff like that, man. Fearing for her safety, Pearl took their young son and fled back to her family in Canada. The reunion was short-lived. Before the marital split, Pearl and her husband had gone to Chicago, the world's Columbian Exposition. He figured he could apply his gambling skills on the suspected tourists. Apparently, they weren't as gullible as he expected, and his grandiose plan to get rich vanished. So he took a job as a carnival barker, and Pearl had to go to work again. During that period, she became enamored of the Wild West shows being staged as part of the exposition, and becoming infatuated with one of the cowboys. According to accounts of that time period, the cowpoke gave Pearl the money she needed to escape from the beatings. When she had her son safely stashed with her parents, she succumbed to the lure of the West and moved to Trinidad, Colorado, then to Phoenix in the Arizona Territory. The romance of the Old West wasn't what she had expected. However, so once again Pearl was forced to compromise to survive. This meant more menial labor and probably clandestine meetings for money. Clandestine meetings for money. Oh, put it in a big word there. Clandestine meetings. Maybe you could use that sometime. I have a sore thumb and I can't hold my liquor either. Hey, what's up, Secret Agent, man? Good to have you here, man. And, and unbeknownst to her at the time, all this was leading up to the incident of May 29th, 1899. Then in one of her darkest hours, her life seemed to take a turn for the better. The abusive husband she had fled years earlier showed up in Phoenix. He had contacted her family to find where she'd moved, and now he came to her with the promise that he was a changed man who would never again lay a hand upon her, either in angerness or drunkenness. Pearl made another bad decision. She took him back. For a while, it seemed like it might work. Hart gave up gambling as a livelihood and found work as a hotel manager. Pearl worked as a cook and a maid, and the reunion produced a daughter. There was not, however, a happy ending. And there she is. At about 5 years of togetherness, Hart announced that he was sick of being a husband and tired of being chained to a family. He told his young spouse that he wanted out and joined the U.S. Army with no apparent remorse about leaving a wife and child destitute on the streets of Phoenix. Alone again, Pearl got along as best as she was able, living pitifully on the meager wages she earned as domestic chores and probably prostitution. Damn. She also tried to kill herself on at least 3 occasions, but acquaintances stopped her every time. Once again, Pearl Hart was forced to call upon her family for help. She sent her daughter back to Toledo, Ohio, where her parents had moved, and she migrated to the mining camps in the territory's Pinal Mountains. And the episode that would make her famous drew closer. Man, is that another goddamn train, man? Just once, man. I want to get my ass to the library and like shit where it's quiet. All right, bye bye. Shit. All right. And the episode. Oh, camp life was hard, but she found work as a cook for a mining company in Mammoth. The pay was minimal, and her situation got even worse when the letters from home began arriving. Each letter said her mother's health was deteriorating. The family needed money. Pearl had none to send. At the same time, she befriended Joe Booth, a miner. He said they could earn more money if they moved to Globe. They entered into a loose partnership and tried to make it big by working a small mining claim. But theirs was not a success story. The riches never came. They started a hauling company to carry supplies to surrounding mines. The result was the same, and the letters from home kept coming, and each one described her mother's health as worsening. Oh, thanks, Crofty. Yeah, I've had it a while. That, eh, that's kind of faded. Ended up getting caught in the rain once, and the black spots on there ended up coming off of there. Thank you though. At the same time, she befriended Joe Boot, a miner, said that she could earn more money. He said that they could earn more money if they moved the globe. The internet, okay, I already did that. 8/29th, 1899 was getting closer. She told Boot about her troubles. He came up with a possible answer. They should rob a stagecoach. She was reluctant. He was forceful. It would be easy, he said. Nobody robs stagecoaches anymore, he said, so the stage lines wouldn't be expecting a holdup. Also, he said, due to the infrequency of armed robberies, there wouldn't be a shotgun toting guard on board to dissuade them. It was, he said, a perfect plan. Pearl said she'd think about it. She did. Then she made another bad decision. She agreed. May 29th, 1899 had arrived. Pearl Harbor was about to become both famous and infamous. Pearl and Boot left Globe on horseback long before the stage to Florence with its three passengers and driver pulled out. Pearl had cut her hair short and tucked what remained under a cowboy hat. And she put on some Boot's clothing, which didn't fit her very well because she was only 5'2" and weighed about 100 pounds, while Boot was a 5'6", 150 pounder. She was a slender woman. They rode their horses southwest of Globe to Cane Spring. The dirt road made a sharp turn, so the stage would have to slow down. And then they waited. When the coach came around the curve, Arizona's first and only female stagecoach robber and her accomplice drew their pistols and screamed at the driver, "Elevate!" Taken by surprise, he threw his hands into the air. Boot kept his gun aimed at the driver while Pearl turned her pistol toward the passengers and ordered them out of the coach. When they complied, she searched one and removed their money, about $425. Then, in a move that surprised everyone at the scene, she gave each passenger $1 so they have enough to buy food when they reached Florence. As the robbers were leaving, Pearl Hart made another bad mistake when she grabbed the driver's six-gun, and they rode off into the surrounding desert. While the robbery went off without a hitch, nothing else went according to plan, if there ever was a plan. Being novices, the duo had neglected to figure out how they were going to get to Benson, where they hoped to catch a train that would take them miles away from the scene and eventually to Canada. With no maps or established routes to guide them, they got lost several times and left an easily followed trail through the desert underbrush. Meanwhile, the stagecoach continued on to Florence, where the driver told Pinal County Sheriff W.E. Truman that he recognized the robbers. The sheriff formed a posse of armed horsemen and they left at once. It took less than 4 days for the capture. Exhausted and soaked by a spring rain, Pearl and Boot made camp in a small cave. Boot started a fire. They removed their guns and some of their clothing to let them dry out, then fall asleep. This made it easy for the posse. They surrounded the pair, sneaked in, and removed their guns and woke them up with the news that they were under arrest. Boot gave up easily. Pearl did not. She sprang up fighting and snarled that she would have shot all of them if they hadn't taken her gun away. Sheriff Truman later told a reporter for the Tucson Citizen, "One wouldn't think that she is a very tiger for nerve and endurance. She looks feminine enough now in the woman's clothes I got for her, and one can see the touch of a tasteful woman's hand in a way that she has brightened herself. Yet only a couple of days ago I had a struggle with her for my life. She would have killed me in my tracks because she had got to her pistol." Here we go again. Damn. Shit. Good grief, man. Third goddamn train, man. So I wanted to just be at the library where there's no damn loud ass trains passing by here. Hey, Karen, welcome in. Glad to have you here. The couple was jailed in Florence and charged with armed robbery. Not just any armed robbery, however, the first stagecoach robbery ever pulled off by a woman. And although nobody realized it at the time, it would also be the last stagecoach robbery in the United States. The inevitable media circus soon followed. The woman bandit was big news all across the nation. The highly competitive newspapers of the day sent reporters to Florence in the hope of producing sensational trial stories. Cosmopolitan magazine, still in its infancy, asked for an interview. The New York Times used stringers to cover the incident. Pulp magazines and dime novels, the most popular forms of reading material at the time, exploited the situation through a blend of fact, fiction, and fancy. Uh, Tacoma, why can't you subscribe to everyone? Are you limited to subscribers or what? Sheriff Truman didn't like it. He said all the publicity was extremely annoying and therefore opted to send Pearl to the Pima County Jail in Tucson while keeping her partner in the Florence facility. They did not deter or even slow up the sensationalism being generated by the case. Once the basic facts had been discovered and distorted, the reporters began working on new angles. In time, many of them converted Pearl Hart from sinner to saint, elevating her from hold-up artist to a sympathetic figure who had good reasons for committing the crime. A few even depicted her as a woman's liber long before the term came into popular use. She was, according to one report, a strident voice for women's emancipation. Many others picked up a quote she allegedly used in the Florence jail when she said that she would, quote, never consent to be tried under a law she or her sex had no voice in making, or to which a woman had no power under the law to give her consent, unquote. Her notoriety grew. Jail guards started hanging around her, some even asking for her autograph. They created that one account said was an enthusiasm that was harmful to discipline. The newspaper reporters were her constant visitors, digging into both her past and her frame of mind, questioning her about the men in her life and how she felt about the danger of leading a life such as the one she had chosen. A lot of that fuzzy good feeling toward her vanished a short time later. While incarcerated in Tucson, she became friends with an inmate trustee known as either Ed Hogan or Ed Sherwood. Serving time for petty theft, this led to another error in judgment by Pearl Hart. Hogan or Sherwood became emotionally fond of the woman and, because he was followed, to roam the jail rather freely, helped her escape on October 12, 1899, by cutting a hole through the thin wall of her cell. They fled together and got as far as Deming, New Mexico, before local lawmen recognized them, arrested them, and returned them to Florence. There, although she still hadn't consented to be tried under what she considered an unfair law, Pearl was forced to face Judge Fletcher Doane and a jury. Before her trial began, she made a flamboyant, though facetious, attempt at suicide. While the guard stood directly in front of her cell, she screamed that she no longer wanted to live and hurled some white powder into her mouth. The guard called a doctor who examined the woman, then told her to quit faking because, he said, no one ever killed themselves by swallowing talcum powder. Her fate now lay in the hands of the jury. Speaking on her own behalf, the lady bandit played the sympathy card, telling the jurors about her dying mother and repeating her earlier statements about the laws being unfair to her gender. Apparently it worked. The jury met for less than an hour before returning a verdict of not guilty. But if Pearl felt she had escaped the long arm of the law, it was only a monetary belief. Judge Doane was about to let her off so easily. He wasn't about to let her off so easily. Furious, he read the riot act to the first jury, impelled a new jury, then had her rearrested for stealing the stagecoach driver's six-shooter during the holdup. The new jury debated for less than 15 minutes before finding her guilty. The Tucson Citizen reported that the judge decided it would take 5 years of discipline in Yuma to cure her for the practice of holding up a stage. Joe Boot received a 30-year sentence on the original charge and was also sent to Yuma, where he became a trustee and was allowed to drive a freight wagon. One day he simply drove away from the prison and was never heard from again. Damn. Can't trust somebody like that. God damn. I don't know why they even gave him that option. Once she got settled down in the prison cells, especially prepared for her, Pearl went about her business becoming a famous person. As the prison's most celebrated inmate, she was given a small side yard adjacent to her cell and was allowed to grant interviews. An interview increasing number of legitimate journalists and fiction writers compiled prose about her love for cigars, her ability to cuss like a mule skinner, and how she strutted around her quarters behaving like a lady bandit should. She also agreed to pose with unloaded firearms, then went through a period when she acquired religion and began spreading the gospel. She gave fellow inmates oh, she gave fellow inmates long lectures on how to avoid the ways of the sinner, warning them that crimes only leads to places like Yuma Territorial Prison. Word of her evangelism and apparent rehabilitation spread outside the prison walls, and a group of Arizona citizens petitioned for her release. After serving 18 months, her sentence was commuted and Pearl Hart was set free. But there's more. Many historians don't think it was her religious beliefs that got her out of jail early. In fact, it was something quite the opposite. According to their versions, Pearl was pregnant at the time. This had the earmarks of a major scandal because the only men she had contact with during the incarceration were the prison guards, the warden, the chaplain, and worst of all, Territorial Governor Alexander W. Brody, the man who ordered her release. Damn. Shit. I'm surprised the milkman ain't in there too. Shit. God damn. However, there is no record of her giving birth to a third child, so the rumor may have been an attempt to get out of prison early. If that was the case, it worked. As a provision of her release, Pearl had to agree to leave Arizona Territory and never return. She promised and left the area in late 1902, headed for Kansas City. The Yuma Sentinel recorded a departure with this observation. Hey, what's up, Al? Nice to see you, man. Quite a large number of people were at the depot to get a glimpse of Arizona's famous female ex-bandit. They were not disappointed, for she was there. And if there is one thing more than another that Pearl is not shy on, it is fondness for notoriety. After arriving in Kansas City, she moved in with her mother and sister. The Sentinel's report noted that the sister had written a drama in which Pearl will assume the leading role. That the drama will embody Pearl's own experience as a stage robber, with all the blood and thunder accompaniments, and the famous Pearl will once again, with her trusty Winchester, hold up the driver of a western stage, line up the passengers, and relieve them of their valuables. Here she is again. Get to focus here. The play entitled The Arizona Bandit got in the Orpheum circuit but did not do well. Our critic noted that Pearl Hart portrays herself with all the enthusiasm of a pile of rocks, a rather brave observation considering that the object of his scorn was armed with a Winchester. When the show closed, Pearl managed a cigar store in Kansas City, but her troubles weren't over. She was arrested and charged with receiving stolen canned goods and running a gang of pickpockets, and did more jail time. God damn. I think it was getting a damn break like that, you'd fly straight. You know, damn. Stay away from these bad people, man. Shit. The rest of her life is sketchy. Some sources say she served her time, then moved to San Francisco, where she allegedly died in 1925. The more popular versions say she moved to New York, worked under an alias of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, and returned to Arizona and married Calvin Bywater, who operated a ranch near Globe. According to this theory, she lived a quiet and much more private life for the last 50 years before dying on December 30th, 1955, at the age of 85, and is buried in a cemetery in Claypool, halfway between Globe and Miami. And that's Miami, Arizona. Credibility for the storyline came from Clara T. Woody, a newspaper writer, who said she discovered that Pearl Bywater was actually Pearl Hart while Woody was working as a census taker in 1940. She said Miss Bywater's room was littered with cigar butts and that she was probably sloppily dressed, but did not explain why she made the connection. Other accounts relate much of the same information, but say Pearl's gravesite is in Hayden, not Claypool. Another story says she eventually returned to Florence and visited the courthouse where she was tried and convicted. She observed that the place hasn't changed much, and when asked about her identity, she replied, Pearl Hart, Lady Bandit. Under any circumstances, the life of Pearl Hart ended a long time ago, but the legend survives. She has been the subject of The Legend of Pearl Hart, a musical production that ran in New York in 2006. A play titled Lady with the Gun that was staged in Prescott in 2002, and the movie Legend of Pearl Hart, filmed in 2007 but not yet released. She also has been the subject of countless books, historical references, and never-ending speculation. All right. Hey, well, that's it for that one, guys. It's the end of chapter 6. I do thank you guys very, very much. For being here. This has been a great live stream. And I really appreciate you guys for being here. All of you guys. To Al SoCal, Karen, Luke, Tacoma, Hose, John Denicola, Crofty, Secret Agent Man, and Cheryl. Cheryl was here too. I do thank you guys very much once again. I do have a Cash App. If you guys are willing to donate anything, you guys can. Anything helps. But your support is always appreciated very much. So I thank you guys. And tonight, if I catch anything, I will be going live. So I do have 2 notifications to burn. So keep an eye out for that. If you guys don't get a notification, just be sure to check your subscription section of your YouTube. You can always find it there if you don't get no notification. So thank you very much. This is Jose G, Lone Wolf of Arizona. Peace.